In today's exclusive, we're going to be joined by NTV's own primetime news anchor, who is also a reporter, who is also a very good voiceover artist, who apparently also has a very attractive personality. What am I talking about? It's none other than Trevor Ombija.
NTV Tonight.
For the construction of buildings on riparian land. Vision 2030 is anchored on three main pillars.
Thank you, Trevor, for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Marian.
So, Trevor, tell us about your educational background.
I'll give you a very quick history. I went to Opanga Secondary School. Can you pronounce that? Yes,
Totally not.
And then for tertiary education, I went to the University of Nairobi. Studied journalism and media studies.
Ah, journalism. That's when you felt like there's the passion. That's what you want to do.
Interestingly, no. I started feeling the passion, I think, when I was in Form 2. Because the school that I mentioned to you, Opanga Secondary School, is smack in the middle of the village. It's in Nyakach. And somehow I always assumed that if I get to the media, I'll be able to air some of the plights of the people and they would get help. Because that's all I ever knew. And in my head, I assumed that once I step on there, then I would be able to help them. I wanted to be their voice, so to speak. And that's when I started following the passion of doing journalism and all that. So I already knew what I wanted to do when I was in high school.
Yeah. So before you joined NTV, what other broadcast fields were you in?
CCTV Africa. I worked there for a year as an intern, as an assignment desk editor. Well, don't be fooled by the title. It was
because
just
I wanted to ask what
it was basically a glorified intern because we were fresh out of school and most of their correspondents don't speak English. So first of all, they would have to send you a script that is just all over the place. All you have to do is put the words together and then send it now to the managing editor. So that's essentially what we used to do. So we were like a conduit between the managing editor and the correspondents all over Africa. So I stayed there for about 2 years and then I moved into Nation FM. Back then it was Easy FM.
Oh, yeah,
so I stayed there for a year as well and then moved to TV.
Oh, okay. So throughout, since Nation FM, CCTV Africa until NTV, what's the importance of practical experience in broadcast media?
Practical experience is, I can't even quantify it. Like Trump would say, it's huge. It's something you need because then it also teaches you how to think on your feet, the things you need to look out for, because the journalism industry has very many dynamics. It's not as simple as it comes through. Because one thing that you always have to focus on is the truth. That truth might not be very comfortable with several people. And then there's also the issue of your name. So people will always assume that just because you're from this particular region, you must be biased towards a particular political affiliation. That's on the political side. But being able to know how to package a story, how to get the importance of a story, so many things can happen at the same time. But it's only experience that will guide you towards what is a story and what's not a story. So there's still the old story of when a dog bites a man, that's not news. The other way around, that's news. So that's how you get to know. Experience will teach you how to sift through what is news and what's not.
Okay. So you're good at editing, you're good at shooting, you're good at everything.
Good. That would be for you to judge. I'm not sure I'd call myself good, but I get by all right. And maybe my managing editor might think I'm good, but I'd let him say that.
Because most of the time we ask ourselves, people anchor news, what else can the news anchors do?
Oh yeah, everybody assumes we just sit here and read out loud like a class 3. No. We actually come into work at 8 a.m. like everybody else. And you have to sift through the news like I mentioned earlier on. You have to be in touch with the reporters on the ground. You also have to read your newspapers so that you know what's happening. Sometimes the auto cue that you see, that is the program we use to read on air. It's just in front of the camera, so it always looks like we're looking at the audience. But sometimes it goes off. When it goes off, you need to know what to talk about. Sometimes there's breaking news. When there's breaking news, you need to know how to give background. And that is where now your experience comes in, and also how much you've read comes in, and how fast you can edit and how fast you can synchronize so many things. Because at that point, the director will be talking to you, they'll be telling you you're getting so and so on phone. It's upon you to craft the questions well enough for everybody else out there to know what exactly happened. And remember, at that point, even you don't know what happened. You just know a tagline. So and so has died. That's it. So you have to find the background, find out who this so-and-so is, what he did.
Okay. So in all these years that you've been in broadcast media or broadcast field, what event or what station or what day or what story that you covered that represents the zenith or the high point in your career?
The zenith.
Yeah.
Big words there. And it was actually very recent. It was just last month. And there's several other stories that I could mention, but the one that actually touched me is one that I did in Wajir. This was about a family. 11 siblings have already died from a disease that nobody knows what it is. It's a strange disease that affects them at the age of about 25 to 30. That's at their prime age. So what happens is people assume that they're being haunted. In fact, they say ati wako na jini. Yeah. So when I went and covered that story, several medical officers have offered to go and find out what the disease is and how it can be stopped. And there was this young girl, her name was Barwako. She had to drop out of class 4 to take care of her ailing mother who's been ailing for the last 5 years. So out of all that, out of airing their plight, there's been a lot of help going their way. And somehow I know Barwako will end up going back to school. But even if that doesn't happen as soon as I wanted to, as long as that disease is discovered, number one, and then the future generations are helped, for me that is one of the highest points for me. And it was very recent. The others, I mean, are just normal stories. You do a story, it looks fantastic. People get a good reception out of it. Sometimes it can even be a funny story. Yeah. There's a story I did about Kidero's grass just before President Obama came in. So many people liked it. It has one of the largest viewership. But it was just a light story. It was just a light piece. But the question is, what kind of story do you do as a journalist that will impact on you as a person? And you'd feel that this has actually fulfilled what I wanted it to do.
Speaking about that, what is your niche coming to news?
That's the thing. For the general anchors like us, we don't have a specific niche, so to speak. It's just something you cover everything that comes your way, and you make sure you know something about everything that is coming your way. Yeah. But you also have a lot of backup. The director will help you, take you through stuff. If something is coming through and it's something very interesting and more concrete, you'd have a lot of backup. But going forward, I really want to venture into environmental issues because that's where the world is going to. Climate change is real, global warming, and there isn't enough material on it. There's enough material, there's just no practical application of what the material says. They're just as good as what they have on paper. So that's eventually the next level that I want to take it to.
Okay, so I do understand that you're also a reporter, and reporters really have a really hard time when going to the field, for instance, climate change, war, conflict, things like that. But what do you as a news anchor, what challenges do you face?
Several. In fact, as a news anchor, there's a lot. One of the biggest one for me is perception. Yeah, people look at you out there because of where you come from. They assume you're leaning towards a certain end, and sometimes there's the natural reaction from people. Like I remember back in the day when I was in radio, I stayed there for a while, and some people said I should actually stay there because people believe that there's certain people who have a face for TV, a color for TV, things like that. So team dark skin, team tint like us, it would take a bit of a while for people to adjust. And sometimes this is even worse at this particular period of social media. People tell you what they think, straight up. They don't care what you're feeling. And sometimes they tell you that and you're smack in the middle of reading the news. Even as we sift through and read the response, we always see the response, the backlash that is there. If somebody says they don't like the way you look, you will see it. And you're in the middle of reading news. Your face cannot change, and you cannot lash out at them. So there are those instances where people don't like what they see. There are those instances where people actually do like what they see a little bit too much. Then now it becomes a bit dramatic. When you walk out there, people walk up to you and they want your number and all that. And you know, for them, since you're always with them at night and you're talking to them, and when they're with their children having dinner, they assume you're one of them. And you know, they think you know them. They know you, but you don't know them. So you have to give them the exact same energy that they're giving you. Then there's also the advantages of when you walk into a supermarket, sometimes you're given a bit of preferential treatment, which is not a good thing, but it's just something that happens naturally.
Is it like a good thing?
It depends on the kind of person you are.
Because you're like in the spotlight?
It depends on the kind of person you are, because one time, one of the guards wanted me to jump the queue, so to speak.
Oh, wow.
And this was in a banking hall. I simply said, no, I'll just stand here.
That was a good
Because
move.
you only do that if you're either pregnant or you have some level of incapacitation. But you don't just do it because I'm on TV, so I need to go. No. That's not how it works.
But some people would go for that.
Well, it depends on your character. And
True.
that's the other thing,
Personality.
because eventually being on air somehow gets into your head, either the good way or the bad way. So it depends on your personality as a person and what you look forward to and how much you're grounded. Are you grounded in religion? Are you grounded in vanity? Depends on an individual. Yeah.
Okay, what else do you do in broadcast or rather in NTV other than news anchoring and news reporting?
And news reporting.
Yeah.
Sometimes I edit my own stories. However, we have people who do that. And then I also do voiceovers. Voiceovers for documentaries that are coming up and maybe some advertisements here and there, although that is not officially sanctioned. We tend to do voiceovers for the company. Yeah.
Okay, and what else, if you were to live another life, would broadcast be you? Would you do broadcast all over again?
Now that I know better?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question, but I'll keep it as honest as I can. I think I would. I'd still do the exact same thing. It's not turning out to be exactly what I wanted, because, you know, when I was in high school, I assumed that all I would ever do as a journalist would be to seek out those who need help from the public, air their stories, and they will get help. When I got to the media industry, I realized that that is not how it works, because essentially then the media can always be used as a conduit to solicit funds from people. And then I also realized there are also some people who are con men. And then I also realized that the media houses have their own guidelines of how much you can do and how much you can't. So you can't exactly air everybody else's plight. So it is a balance that I had to get used to. But I think if I was to do it again, I'd still just become a journalist. Yeah.
Still at NTV.
Now that's a tricky question. I think as a journalist, you can always work anywhere.
Yeah,
but
true.
NTV is the first platform that I got. So you take it and you run with it. If other opportunities come by, in fact, the interesting thing is even our own bosses, they tell you if you get a good opportunity, you bring it up and we'll talk about it. If it is something that will actually build you as a person, they would let you pursue it. Yeah.
Okay. So for the young and upcoming broadcast presenters, for example, me and my other friends, what advice would you give us?
First of all, don't listen to what everybody says. People always have an opinion. Sounds cliche, but don't listen to what people say. Number one, people will tell you they don't think you can become an anchor. They don't think you can become a reporter. You don't have the voice. You don't have the look. People always have something to say. When you want to pursue journalism in school, it's a flooded organization. You won't get a work there. Those people are loose. They don't use their heads to think. I mean, ideally is focus on what is bringing you to the journalism industry. What do you want to achieve as a person? And go for it with everything that you have. And there will be setbacks, several setbacks. I used to work here at Nation FM for a year. Before I got into TV, I did a 6-month straight training and always coming to the studio and doing roundups and doing tests, screen tests all the time, 6 months. And I was already working here. So you can imagine, if you're an upcoming journalist from the street, how long it would take you to actually get to a media station like NTV. But the question is, do you want to give up on your talent? Do you want to listen to what everybody else is saying? Or do you want to focus on what you want?
So it doesn't matter what kind of school you went to?
It doesn't. I went to Andingopanga Secondary School. You can barely pronounce the name of that place. I mean, but here I am today.
Yeah.
It depends on how much passion you have and how much drive you have. However, university education is very important, because the Media Council of Kenya nowadays does not allow people who don't have any sort of media training to become journalists. You must have some level of training. Yeah. But where you started from and where you came from doesn't matter. The question is, what are you doing now to get to where you want to go? Because eventually people like us will grow old and people like you will take over. But the question is, are you ready when that opportunity comes?
I will be ready.
I certainly know you will.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Trevor, for joining us in this interview today.
Thank
You've
you
had
for
a wonderful
having me.
time.
Absolutely, and I wish you all the best in your endeavors.
Thank you so much.
All right.
That brings us to the end of our interview with Mr. Trevor Ombija. He is NTV's own primetime news anchor and also reporter, and he was also the winner, second runners-up of the BBC World News Komla Dumo Awards. Yeah?
How did you know that?
Journalist in the making.
Wow. How did you know that?
Journalist in the making.
All rest my case.
Well, we're going to see you next time, same place, only here at TSN TV. And I was your host, Marion Gashohe.